Okay, we'll get right into conduct of business. Item 10A, receive a report on the city's municipal code, section 9.16.10, domestic animals, and recommendation to the city council from the Parks and Recreation Commission to allow dogs on leash to enter city parks and provide direction on modification to existing animal regulations. Carrie?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. In response to a request from the City Council, the Parks and Recreation Commission recently reviewed city rules regulating dogs in city parks and discussed the challenges associated with the enforcement of these rules. The Commission also discussed improvements to the dog run at Commodore Park to make the space more welcoming to dogs and their owners. During its discussion, the Commission noted that San Bruno's rules prohibiting both on and off-leash dogs in city parks is the county's most restrictive, with 11 of San Mateo County's largest cities allowing on-leash dogs in parks. Several commissioners expressed hesitation in utilizing police officer time to enforce the rule prohibiting on-leash dogs in parks. The Commission noted that the relationship with the family dog has evolved a bit since the 1988 adoption of the ordinance prohibiting dogs in parks, with people now walking and exercising routinely with a family dog and including the family dog in outings to the park. At the conclusion of their discussion, the Commission voted to recommend to the City Council that the existing rules be amended to allow on-leash dogs in parks. The Commissioners expressed an interest in restricting on-leash dogs in parks from entering play areas with play equipment for children and required that dogs be on a leash of no longer than 6 feet in length. One commissioner expressed concern that a modification to the existing rule was unnecessary since it was not routinely enforced at this time and that modifications might heighten an expectation of more routine enforcement. The Commission also recommends to the Council that the dog run at Commodore Park be improved by creating a flatter surface within the run, a reduction to the size of the small dog play area, and an increase in the size of the large dog play area, all within the existing footprint that's currently fenced. The Commission also requests additional seating and automatic dog water bowls and faucets with hoses be installed at the run. Should the City Council wish to pursue these improvements, staff would return with a proposed project as part of the upcoming budget process. In the event the City Council wishes to modify the rules regulating dogs in city parks, staff would return at your next meeting with a draft ordinance for the City Council's consideration. If adopted, the new signage in the parks with these new rules would be necessary. Staff anticipates the cost associated with these signs would be approximately $3,500 and could be installed before the ordinance would go into effect. Staff is seeking your direction regarding the regulation of dogs in city parks and improvements to the run at Commodore Park. This concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Oops, sorry, Chair. Not on the current dog park. So, I think this is a topic that's come up, and there's folks on both sides. Not having the dogs leashed or not, or should the leash period, near playground areas or I think should not be. We don't allow people to smoke X number of feet in front of buildings, and I think the same should be for a playground. Kids run around, kids get excited, dogs, they're all having fun. It only takes a little something, and we know what will happen the moment, unfortunately, a dog bites a child. There's going to be problems here. And I understand. My kid was bit, and I thought the owner maybe didn't take the responsibility he or she should. I would not be happy. But I also want to say, I think a lot of the complaints we have is as far as what's left behind after the dog leaves. So to me, is the city prepared to have baskets, bags, dispensers, etc.? We want to spend $3,500 and blanket the city, or do we want to, something I was thinking of is, do we want to take a park that's highly used and institute a trial period with that? And really, I call it Cherry, I know it's Grundy Park, and see if that's maybe a possibility. That's the one we have where we will have the most folks that will say we're trying to practice. We have the dogs, we have the kids, they take them off the leashes, because it still doesn't prevent them from taking them off leashes, and that's the concern. And then leaving things behind, that's the concern. We talk about enforcement, so that the commission wanted that. I'm also concerned that, yes, in order to have something, you need to enforce something. I'm also saying to our San Bruno Police Department to use your resources, and to the chief, and start patrolling for leashes. I believe I need the police on the street patrolling and watching and being proactive in the community. So to me, if we took a park or two and tried that as a trial basis, we can then truly see how much time is it going to take from the officer to be effective? What type of change have we had? Because I can't believe that staff can tell me and come back in 6 months and give me an assessment from all the parks in the city. So to me, to just blanketly do it for $3,500, place up signs, make it happen, and then come back and say, you know, gosh, what were we thinking? The other thing is, just like we had in the city park, and I'm going to talk for a minute, is we used to have you could drink anywhere in the city park when I worked there. Anywhere and everywhere. Asphalt, driveway, there was no red zone. Then we came forward, when I was on a committee, I was still with the city, I believe, and we said, you know what, let's restrict it. It needs to be so many feet across the creek and so many feet where the pavilion is. Then that wasn't good enough, so then we had to come back and we said, now we want to have it designated to just the picnic site, and we want to permit parking, and we want it nowhere else. So what my point of that is that where we took a step, it wasn't a good enough step, but we took a step, and then we had to take a second step, which has been successful. So that's where my suggestion is going down a step or two to make sure we have it correct, and then institute it if it works citywide.
Okay. I really don't have an issue with dogs in the park as long as they're on leash and as long as they're restricted to a paved path in the park, not on grass and not near children's play areas. That may restrict some parks, but for City Park, if somebody wants to walk the loop, as people do hundreds of times, and they want to take their dog with them, they could do it. But none of this throwing the ball between Diamond 1 and Diamond 2, and it's just not safe overall. It's just a matter till something happens. So I would support dogs in the park as long as they're on the leash. I think you said 6 foot. And as long as they're on a paved path within the park, whatever park it happens to be. Anyone else?
I love dogs, but I have a 4-year-old son right now, and we're not really ready to make that step to get a dog and have the 4-year-old.
Oh, come on, Marty.
No, not ready, not ready.
Bruno would be fine.
But I totally understand how you want to take your dog to the park and you go walk around. It's a beautiful thing to be able to walk your dog. Unfortunately, we have some irresponsible individuals that just do whatever they want with that dog. They don't clean up after the dog. They don't have control of the dog. So by allowing dogs in the park without following through with some kind of enforcement, it's going to create a mess. But as Councilman Rico Medina said, let's give it a shot at City Park. Let's give it a shot at Grundy Park. I would be interested in extending not just the trailways, but if you're having a picnic and your dog's on a leash, they're at that table and it's away from the child play areas, then I'm open to seeing how that would work. So those are my comments.
Okay. Anyone else? Irene, Ken?
Right, just playing off of what the mayor said as far as not having a problem with walking through the park, and I know a lot of this discussion is City Park, and that's my park. I live adjacent to City Park. I know it, I see it, I drive through it 3-4 times, maybe more times a day. I see dogs in the park all the time. I see them on leashes, I see them throwing the ball between the diamonds. If you say not on the grass, if you say not near play area, then you better not be in City Park, because you got 2 play areas and you got 1 pathway that walks right by them. I've been involved in these discussions and Half the people in the city don't want it, half the people in the city want it. I asked a simple question, why don't we divide Grundy Park? You have the most, I don't want to say proliferation, but you have the most involvement of dog walkers in Grundy Park, and it's a long park, and why don't we just divide it? And that spurred on a big debate of arguments and things. There's not going to be a good answer. You're going to have half the people upset and half the people happy. Not even considering the improvements we can do to the actual dog park. I don't want to see any more dogs that need to be in City Park. It's just going to get crazy. It's bad enough now with the amount, and it's not people are breaking the law. People just feel that they have the right to walk their dog through the park. And I don't know, maybe they blindly, the signs are all there. Yes, and I take my dog close to the park because I'm reading the signs still. So, and I see police officers all the time and everything. But I'm actually in the parking lot and area and stuff. But I don't walk my dog through the park. And yeah, there's every instance that you can have with a family, with children, with all ages, who are going to have an argument about dogs in the park. I have a 95-pound dog. I don't need to walk my dog throughout the city. But for those that have dogs, give them another spot. Give them a little bit more space. But I'm not in favor of letting every park have a dog, leash or non-leash. I think the Park and Rec Commission can look at another area for possibly a pilot program, possibly another area where you've got more activities there. But you're going to have dogs all over the place.
Irene, anything?
Did you want to hear from the public? She's been
Yeah.
standing patiently.
Then why don't you walk over and tell us your name and your street, please?
You going to change our minds?
My name is Karen Cormosini, and I have a dog, and she is a small dog, and I understand that there is the signs in the park that you should not bring the dog there. My dog is very well behaved. She does not, I do have her off leash because she loves to run, and she does not bother people or other dogs, and she listens very well. She stays right on the side, waits for me until I tell her to go. So I wish it would be just a little bit more space for the dogs, because for me she is company, and so. And I understand, and I really hate people that don't pick up after their dog, or they don't teach their children the same thing. It's the same thing. Or you say, in the park, you're not supposed to have the dogs. You're not supposed to have liquor in the park, and people still do it, I know. But I just don't like people who don't take care of their animals or their children. It's the same thing. So, and that's all what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you again. It's me again, Reina, Florida Avenue. We have Bowie. My husband and I have Bowie, and we rescue Bruno because he happened in downtown San Bruno. We named him, and Mr. Medina, Rico Medina, you helped name Bruno. So,
I love dogs.
right.
Should have named him Rico.
It's only one Rico. It's
There's
only
nothing
one
wrong
Rico.
with that name for everyone.
Right, so Bruno and Bowie. Bruno is 4 months, so I am not gonna say that he's well behaved, because he's not. Okay, he's going through the growing pains, through classes, but Bowie is an insane well behaved like yours. And let me tell you, they're not dogs to me and my husband. They are part of our families. And it seemed like we've been breaking the law since we moved to San Bruno, because we take him to, when the music in the park, Bowie was there. He loves the music. He's on a leash. You mean to tell me I'm not going to, I have to leave him behind to come to City in the Park to listen to a wonderful music which I'm looking forward to that. But I cannot leave him behind in my house. It's my kid. So I do agree that unleash 6 foot. Totally agree. Pick up after their dogs. Absolutely. How many times have I picked up dirty diapers from so many parks in San Bruno? It is insane. You have no idea. Trash. If we can only educate residents they change diapers in the park, and they leave them there. They don't even have the decency to put them in the trash. I do it. Okay. Not only after Bowie, after Bruno, but diapers, and we need education, and that will be another topic for another day, another evening. But please consider that, because like the lady here and I, we definitely love our four-legged kids. That's how I call Bruno and Bowie, four-legged kids. Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank you. Okay.
Tim from Florida Avenue. I've talked to other cities, actually another council member from Foster City, and what he said that they do there is they open the park sometimes in the mornings, I don't know, certain times, like from maybe 6 in the morning till 8 in the morning, and then do it at night as well, late evenings. So I'd like to recommend that as a possibility for San Bruno. And also, in considering another space, I mean, Commodore Park, that's great and all. That's great that we have that, but it's nothing like, for instance, South San Francisco has Orange Park, dog park, and I think that's a great space. And I think we can find one here in San Bruno if we just look around, and maybe Crestmore, I don't know, or some space that a school is not using, possibly, but away from the kids. Keep them separate. Yeah, that's my consideration. Thank you.
Irene, anything?
Yes, a couple of things.
Okay.
I've owned 2 dogs in my life, both of them for 15 years each. One was a small one, and one was only 70 pounds. But anyway, I also have a grandnephew who lives with my mother, her grandson, great-grandson. He's terrified of dogs, any size. So I can't bring him to music at the park because there's dogs. He just can't handle them. It doesn't matter if we train him or not. So I'm loving Mr. O'Brien's idea of restricting the hours. I'm not going to bring my nephew to the park at 6 in the morning. Oh my God! So that, I think, instead of us making a decision tonight, bring back like 3 ideas that we've kind of talked about up here. I would agree. Look at Grundy Park as another way to divide up Grundy Park and add a dog run park there. If that's a possibility, and if we could do that with a budget, since the budget's coming up, look at the hours and changing the hours, because I know it's fun to run your dog and walk through the park and do all that, but also it's supposed to be a place for children, and I don't. There's enough dogs there now, and you don't want to call up the police every time you walk in the park and there's somebody with their dog. So I don't want to open those floodgates. I agree with the commissioner that said, oh my goodness. So, but I also agree that there's a way to accommodate everybody. But if we do the hours, we need to coordinate with the police that they are enforced. So instead of us making a decision tonight, I would suggest that we send it all back and sidestep, but with those kind of guidelines.
How do you feel about that? You want to send it back? I think you're going to run into you're comparing Foster City to San Bruno with a totally different type of open space down there. They have a lot more room than we do, quite entirely different. So, and restricting the dog owners to certain times of the morning, certain times of the evening, a lot of times that's when the kids get out at certain times in the late afternoon and evenings after school. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of dogs running around the park when it's dark out here at, say, 5:30 at night. So we have a unique situation here, and I'd like to defer to the council, but I still think, as Rico said, we give it a try, a restricted try, and a certain type of basis to see what works and what doesn't work. If we have to go to a next step, we can go to a next step. But like I said before, I don't have a problem with dogs in the park if they are on a leash and in a paved path away from kids. So I'd like to give that a try, but it's up to the rest of my council members.
I'll just say I went ahead and made this suggestion in regards to a trial basis at a park or two. I'm still okay with that. I think that's when we'll really, even we're going to say we can say Grundy Park, and then we might have folks that do practices there coming and saying, now we have nowhere to practice. So we're going to have to balance it out, but at the same time, it's a step to address to see what works and what doesn't, and if it's something that we figured out wasn't the best, then we can always take it back quickly. It's not blanketed. We have no drinking in all the city parks, but it was never that way. It was just here, and then we expanded it. So I think you try it at one or two spots and see its functionality and see what it requires from our enforcement, and then we can reassess.
Okay.
I'd like to just add that the Park and Rec Commission less than 10 years ago did a very extensive study of this issue, whether it was going to open up the parks to animals, or and also to look at our existing parks and possibly locating another dog park because the one was insufficient and too small. I think there's a lot of information out there, and I think the Park and Rec Commission would like to. We should ask them to resurrect all that and bring all that back and contact those people again. And I also like to say to the lady that has the well-behaved dogs and everything, yes, get out there, and as long as we're not enforcing it now, and you're not breaking the law, let's get out there and talk to the community members. Let them know this is a hot issue, and if you want to let your dog be in the park or whatever, you have to walk. You have to clean up after him. You have to keep him on a leash. Yeah, and I think it's be good to hear it more from from a residents. Yeah. Yeah, because we all love our dogs and we all treat them like family, and if we don't want to, because that dog knows when it's time to go for the walk, and if you can't let them do that, then then you've got a upset family member. So, yeah, right.
Marty?
So, taking our first step forward by allowing the dogs just on the path for now, yes. And then having it go back to figure out about the other things, but letting them walk on the path is the least we could do, in my opinion. And that's what I'd be in support of tonight,
Okay.
of allowing them to walk.
Everywhere or certain parks?
Let's control it. So let's say at Grundy and let's say at City Park.
Like I stated, you have pathways that skirt playgrounds. Right by playground, two big playgrounds, little part playground and the big playground. So
Yeah, but they're on a 6-foot leash.
They're on the leash.
the playground goes right up to the pathway. So it's happening now. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's happening now. So I don't want to recommend encouraging it now. It's right now there are a lot more. There are dog walkers that are walking their dogs on the north side of the park, not on the grass side. They're walking them by the rec center, and they walk them along and then through the park and either through the residential area or down the back way towards Beckner. To me, that's fine. But to allow them to start, going, throughout the meat of, City Park is, kids, families, picnics, sports, and everything. So I think that's a problem.
I think if I'm not mistaken, you have the majority of the council to give you some direction tonight, which is the leash and on paved paths only.
If I
And
may,
2 parks.
if I might make a suggestion, we've heard several different comments and suggestions. Rather than bringing back an ordinance, we'll bring back parameters or suggestions based on, well, we'll clarify what we heard tonight and bring back something that looks like potentially a trial program and some options that the council may want to consider based on the commentary tonight.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Good.